Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. Today I'm talking about things that we as record collectors dislike about record collecting. There's a bunch of links down below. Make sure you go check them out. There's links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist that I put together every week, and the Patreon page. Make sure you go check all that out. Of course, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me the old thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. So this actually comes from a conversation we had on the Vinyl Den Facebook group a few weeks back. I threw the question out to everyone and got a bunch of great responses back, and some stuff I never even really thought about until we had that conversation. But the question I asked everyone was, what's one thing you dislike about vinyl records or record collecting? Like I said, a ton of great comments on there. I'll go over some of them that I got. The first one, I guess I'll throw mine out there first, is I said for me, it has to be Warped Records. Seems like almost every album I've bought over the last couple of years has been warped to some degree. Granted, none have been warped enough to impact sound quality, but if I'm paying a premium, I expect a premium product. And that's something I talked about on the channel a lot over the last year or so. As prices have grown over the last couple of years, we haven't seen an increase in overall quality on records. I'm seeing a lot of warps. We're still getting scuffed records. We got stuff coming in paper sleeves, which is another comment I'll get to eventually. But, we're paying a premium for this product, but we're not getting premium products back in return in a lot of instances. On all the comments that I got on this post, I think a lot of them, I'd say probably almost a quarter of the comments were all in some way about cost of records. Like Jerry mentioned, it becomes an expensive addiction, of course, if you're buying multiple records every week, which is something a lot of us do. I mean, even though I've got a pretty sizable record collection, I still buy probably on average, at least one or two albums a week. And then Michael also said cost, which kind of goes along those same lines. Tyler had a great comment. He said the know-it-all vinyl snobs, which that's something a lot of us in the vinyl community have really tried to fight against over the last few years. To really try to be open-minded to a lot of different music, because music is really subjective, and we all have very different musical interests. And I think that's one thing that makes groups like the Vinyl Den Facebook group so great is there's so many different albums, so many different genres that people post in there. It really opened my eyes up to a lot of other music that I wouldn't have listened to, had it not been for Facebook groups like that. Another really interesting comment came from Gil. He said, reissues don't sound as good as originals. That's something I kind of mixed on, because I've got original pressings that sound absolutely incredible. I also have reissues of albums that sound incredible also. I think a lot of times it really comes down to, especially with the reissues, who's mastering it, what where they're sourcing the material from, how it's all put together. There's so many variables that go to in the sound quality that that's something I'm kind of on the fence about. Like I said, with some albums I love original pressings, other albums I think reissues are kind of the way to go with them. And then Nathan said having to get a record right away or run the risk of having to buy on the secondary market, which is that fear of missing out is something I think a lot of us kind of run into. But I'm seeing it with I think less and less of those super limited albums. It seems like as records have gotten really popular over the last couple of years, labels have said, hey, okay, maybe we need to be pressing more of these, which ultimately leads to backlogs at pressing plants and things like that. But I think we're seeing less and less of those ultra limited runs. And he also said also 5,000 variants and my sickness of gotta collect them all, which is something it depends on the band. Like if it's one of my favorite bands, if it's like Blink-182 or MXPX, I've got multiple pressings of all their albums. But a lot of other bands, I've kind of gotten away from that. Take a band like Def Leppard. I had original pressings and reissues of all their albums. And then over the last year or so, I've sold off, I think, all of my duplicates. Really kind of those core bands, my core favorite bands, are really the only ones I have duplicates of. If I already have an album and it gets reissued and I think the reissue sounds better than the copy I have, I'll pick up a copy of the new one, compare them, and then whichever one I don't like, I'll eventually sell off. So I've tried to kind of cut back on the amount of albums that gotta have them all kind of mentality that I've had in the past. Adam had a really interesting comment. He said, seeing people give more attention to the record sound and pressing quality over the quality of the actual music. And that's something that I've been I've kind of played into at times before. There for a while I was collecting the UHQR pressings from Acoustic Sounds, and they're fantastic albums. They sound great, but it's really it's hard for me to spend $150 on an album when there's probably pressings out there that sound almost as good for far less money. I know I think it was the UHQR Are You Experienced by Jimi Hendrix. I think it was the last one I bought. And there's a pressing out there that I have. I ended up buying a copy of. It's a recent pressing. It's like a 2018 reissue. That it's a great pressing. It sounds really great. It's really comparable actually to that UHQR. It's only like 20-25 bucks. So I've tried to stay away from dropping big money on those like high quality pressings when, for the money you're paying for them, yes, they're going to sound incredible, but at 150 bucks, like I said, you can probably buy an album for, $25 that's going to sound almost as good. Is it going to have the same clarity? Probably not. It's not going to be the best sound and quality pressing of it. But for the price difference between the two, a lot of the times I think the cheaper version is probably the better option. Spencer said it's become less about the music and more about the commodity lately. I think it's something that like every community goes through as it grows, as it gets bigger. I remember comic books in the 80s and 90s when it really started picking up and being hugely popular. It really kind of felt that same way. So I think it's why it's kind of a result of the popularity of vinyl records. And then Brian said the biggest pet peeve is must-have records for every collection. Why should I have a record in my collection that I'll never listen to, or worse, can't stand the artist? I guess I have to, confess that I've made a couple of those must-have videos, and I don't really think it's a lot of times something that you have to have in your collection. I think it's just kind of, at least when I do those videos, I try to pick things that are maybe a little bit outside the box, not really like your, Dark Side of the Moon or Fleetwood Mac Rumors or something like that. Oh, everyone has to have that in their collection. It's more so like if you like, X kind of music, these are a lot of albums maybe that people are, maybe kind of overlooking. Those, at least that's the way I approach a lot of those videos. And I know there's a lot of, you must have this in your video, and it's like, 10 of the most basic rock albums of all time. And so I definitely get where he's going with that comment. And then Randy said how they are easily affected by dust. This is something that I've actually, it's actually gotten a little bit better for me over the last year or so. I did a review of I think it's the record roller, I think is the name of it. I did a review on the channel here, and I love that product. Of course, when I get a new record, I clean it with my groove washer, but you can still get dust in the jacket and in the sleeves. So I use that cleaner, the record roller, and I just roll my record before I play it, and it gets rid of all the dust on there. I think it's an absolutely great way to kind of solve that problem for really cheap. I think it's like 20 or 25 bucks on Amazon. Sergio said Japanese press of American records are not necessarily better, although they seem to sell faster than U.S. originals. That's something that Ian and I talked about on the channel maybe a year or two back now. Neither one of us really ever got into the whole Japanese record craze. I know there's a lot of people out there that swear by them, and they do sell fast, and they go for a little bit more money. And I think a lot of times it kind of goes into how records are pressed in Japan, using virgin vinyl and things like that. And, I think there's a lot of lore behind Japanese pressings that, from a lot of the reviews I see out there aren't always necessarily true. Like anything else when it comes to records, there's so many different variables that go into a pressing, how it's mastered and how it's sourced and things like that kind of affect the sound quality of an album. And then GC said space consumption. That's something I think we all kind of fight with as our collections grow, finding space to put them all. I know I've got, probably 3 or 4 different big Calyx shelving units that I use for all my records, and my collection has definitely grown over the years. And then Davis said scalpers all day, every day. Flippers are I guess I see both sides of it. Yes, I don't like the fact that if something's going to be limited, someone's going to go in there and buy a bunch of copies of it just to flip it and turn a profit. Because a lot of times people that really love that music, really love those albums, really miss out on picking up a copy of that. But the flip side of that is, if we weren't paying those inflated prices, people would be buying those albums and flipping them. So as much as we complain about flippers, I kind of see, I include myself in that, as someone that's part of the problem, I guess. Kelvin said moving and packing, hauling stacks of vinyl, that's something I dread, is having to move one day and having to pack up and trying to figure out a way to move all my records. It sounds like an absolute nightmare. Next comment comes from Thomas. I couldn't like this comment enough. He said, paper sleeves, especially when it's an exclusive release like RSD, etc., labels need to step it up. And that's 100% correct. Like if I'm paying more than, $25 or $30 for an album, it should at least come with some kind of, either polyline sleeve or some kind of anti-static sleeve inside the album. Like I said earlier, if you're paying a premium for it, it should be a premium product. That's why I said, $35 plus should come with some kind of better, like, upgraded sleeve inside the album. And then George had a whole list of stuff. He said the cost, which is, like I said, that's one thing that kind of a recurring theme in these comments. Records are getting more expensive, and it seems the quality is getting worse in some cases. I've had new albums that are warped, dirty, scuffed, etc. There's no reason to stick more than one record in a single pocket jacket. I'm seeing less and less gatefolds, which is true. I remember I think it was the Red Hot Chili Peppers a year or two back. They released 2 albums, multiple. I think they had like 20 different variants of each album, but only one of them came in a gatefold, which I thought was it's dumb. Like same thing with what I was talking about with those sleeves. If I'm paying for a premium for a product, I want it to be a premium product. $30 or more should have a gatefold. It's really not much of a price difference between a gatefold and a single sleeve. Just do it and make a nicer product. And then Paul's got a great comment, one that I'm sure everyone out there can agree with, that I don't have enough money to buy all the albums I want. That's something we all run into, and it really comes down to disposable income, especially as prices have really inflated over the last couple of years. When records were $18 to $22, sure, I could go into a record store and buy 5 albums, no problem. Now, if you want to buy 5 albums in a record store, it's going to cost you several $100s. So it's definitely harder to go out there and buy all the albums that you want to have in your collection. And then Tom had a great comment, something that it's definitely I've run into over the last few years. He said, what drives me nuts is pre-ordering a release and getting it a week after it's available in every store. Honestly, if you pre-order it, should be shipped to make it to you on a release day. Why is that so difficult? Yeah, that's something that as much as people complain about Amazon does a really good job of getting it to you on release day. Record stores are pretty good about it also. I've ordered from quite a few independent record stores over the last couple of years. And anything I pre-order from record stores, I typically get, maybe it's maybe like a day or 2 after release day. So I guess, I might get it on Saturday or maybe Monday after it's been released. But if I order from a label, I don't expect to get it for at least a week or 2 after the street date, and it's kind of frustrating. If you walk into your local record store, you could pick it up on release day, but if you order from the label, you're not getting it for a couple of weeks. It just doesn't make any sense. So like I said, we had a great conversation on the Vinyl Den Facebook group. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. I'd love to know what you guys think. What are some of your biggest pet peeves, some of the biggest dislikes that you have about records or in record collecting? Because there's a bunch out there, and like I said, this video could have went on for a lot longer. There's a bunch of comments on that post, but let me know what you guys think. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.